All right, we got the latest Ubisoft open world game here. This is Watchdogs Legion. And what we're going to do is try to find the best constant 60 or better FPS performance just to run around in the game with the 3070 here from EVGA. Show me Bob's and keys. This is bobkeys.com. We are working with them to bring you an additional 25% off on products like Windows 10 Pro. Use coupon code TS25 and you're going to save 25% off the already good price of $18.08, bringing it down by another $4.50. You can save money on Windows 10 Home and also 25% off as well with Office 2019. Now, once you get your key, it'll appear in your account. Just copy that, hit start and type activation, and activation settings will come up. Click on Change Product Key and then paste your product key here, or if that's not there, it may just say Add Product Key or Update Product Key if you have not already activated. Just paste it in there and then you will fully be able to use Windows 10. Thanks to bobkeys.com. And now to our regularly scheduled program. This game was a little difficult to benchmark because it seems to have a lot of different variables that affect performance in different ways depending on your resolution. And at 4K, I couldn't get anything that I was satisfied with because I really like the ray trace reflections. And at 4K, as you can see here with everything on Ultra, our FPS average is 32 and the 1% low is 23.87. That's not playable. It does not feel good. It feels terrible. So if you turn off ray tracing, the problem is that, you get a slight boost in speed. The 1% low is 38, but it still had a minimum of 24, and the 0.1% is 26.25. So you do feel a little bit of lag and stutter here and there. And that is with turning a few things down to very high instead of ultra. I sort of did my own thing, like medium reflections, like a few things. I tried to get a playable, decent frame rate, but even with, everything turned off, like my DLSS is off, ray trace reflections is off, and over here you can see most things are still on ultra. Headlight shadows could probably come down, but even then, at 4K, I'm going to say this is not okay. Nope. So I went down to 1440p, and I really wanted to keep those ray traced reflections, and I think I found my happy medium, because with everything off, it runs really, really well. It runs at like 74.57 with a 1% low at 55.73, completely playable, nice and smooth. But I wanted those ray trace reflections because they actually look really good in this game, so I turned them back on. And here's the settings that I think I'm going to play with, and I'll show you my entire process. If you watch the rest of the video, you'll get to see me just hanging out and benchmarking, and we'll chit-chat about the game and how it runs. But right now with these settings, as you can see on the screen here, headlights only on my car, motion blur always off. Up here at the top, that's what we're getting. Now, the 1% low is 52.66, and since this is a single-player game, it's fine with me. The average is 69.2, and I want to note that in games it does run a little bit slower than this, so it's going to run closer to 60, 65, somewhere in that range. The canned benchmark runs a little better, so I don't know. There's a lot of different benchmarks I've done. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to upload all these to Tech Syndicate, so you can download all of them and take a look and just sort of get an idea of how it runs with this system and a 3070. This setup, and you can start to make some decisions on how you want to play this game or if you want to get a 3070 or not. Just running this game on Ultra, even with ray trace reflections off, is pretty difficult. At 1080p, we're only averaging 62 at our Ultra settings here. Having things on Ultra with ray trace reflections off, and at 1080p running on Ultra with ray tracing, it was too sluggish. So I didn't even tested. It was like, nope, I'm not even going to play this. It's not worth it. So you can play 1080p on very high with the ray tracing, and you can play on 1440p, and they run almost the same. But you'll see when we talk about the game and do some benchmarks. So now just hang out with me, and you can watch the process behind the scenes as we benchmark this game. I'm going to be playing this at 1440p because at the settings that look good, 4K is just too slow in my opinion. And also, this is because, another reason is because I've got it cranked up to 90 FOV, which does put a little more load on your CPU. And the diagnostics and the benchmark that are built in are pretty good now, especially with the update. Before, it wasn't taking full advantage of a lot of GPUs and stuff like that, but now it's doing pretty well. So I've got it on 90 FOV, and then I'm just going to come in here and try a few things. Got my quality set to very high overall. Started there, and then I brought the headlight shadows on cars up to 2. Turned off motion blur because it's garbage. And down here on the bottom you can see it shows the RAM usage that you have going on. I like bloom. I don't care. I'll fight you. And now the post processing, you can put it on SMAA if you're not going to be using ray tracing, but I wanted to take advantage of ray tracing because we've got this GPU with RTX cores and everything, so leaving that on. Subsurface scattering for better skin, ray tracing on high, and I'm going to put the DLSS on quality, and we'll look and see if it looks better with and without and see what the frame rate's like with and without. So that's what I'm going to go with. Now I can run the benchmark, but I want to run around in the game and just see how it feels, and we can use MSI Afterburner to take some samples and tests and whatnot. So let's go ahead and hop into the campaign and run around in the world. So with the ray tracing on at nighttime, it looks really nice. You've got all the reflections and the puddles and stuff. You'll start noticing this in movies. Always, whenever they do a nighttime scene and it's in a city, the ground is always wet. I worked on a few movies in the past, and what they do is actually have someone come out with a water hose right before each shot, even if it's like really hot, sunny day, or like a day without any clouds or rain. They'll hose down the street, and that's something that looks nice with all the reflections, because see what it does to the light. So I like the way it looks right now. I am getting about 57, 58 FPS, 52. So I want to go a little bit higher. So let's see what I can change here to make it go a little higher. But I'm actually satisfied with the way the game looks like this. And the DLSS looks pretty good. I don't notice a lot of blurring or anything like that. Give me that, give me that. I want this truck. There we go. Let's take this box truck. Why not? She was driving that box truck dressed up to like go out to a club or something. I thought it was going to be like some kind of like worker or something, but no, it's somebody dressed like they're going to a club. All right, let's change a few things. So right now, it feels really smooth because the 1% lows are not bad. 56, 57, but like I said, I want to get over 60, so let's change a couple of things. All right, geometry, very high, environment. Texture resolution, if you turn it down, it does look really bad, in my opinion. Let's put it on just my car for having the headlight shadows. Real-time shadows are expensive. What else can I bring down? Like I said, you can't bring down the anti-aliasing unless you move ray tracing. Let's bring ray tracing down to medium and just see how different that looks. So ray tracing's on medium now, and we're getting about 50, the same. It looks similar. It's hard to tell. Yeah, we're getting about the same FPS in the game here. 50, 54. It like barely did anything. It seems like it's worse now. It's like about the same. So let's go ahead and try a couple other things here. Let's bring DLSS over to performance mode. See how different this looks. All right, that's bumping us up to 57, 58. And do I see much of a difference? Hard to tell, but I want to say it's maybe a tiny bit blurrier. Still pretty playable like this because it doesn't really drop into the 30s. And especially since this is a single player game, I feel like you can get away under 60 FPS, but again, goals. I would probably play it, it's 57 right now, 56, 57, drops into like, whenever it gets really busy, sometimes it'll drop to like 47, but not much lower than that. I would probably play it the other way with the higher ray tracing. It looked a little better. Okay, I'm gonna bring ray tracing back up to high. Bring the texture filtering down to low. It's starting to look a little blurry now, and we're not getting any better with the FPS. I'm gonna do this 27-inch monitor. We're gonna go down to 1080p and see what we can do. Because I'm just, with ray tracing and getting it to look good, the game can look really flat if you start turning stuff down too much. It looks actually pretty bad. So I'm gonna try this, and I'm gonna put it back up to where it was. And texture filtering, I'm gonna bring back up to high. All right, 1080p, let's see what we got here. Same, 55, 54. It's like makes no difference. This game does not, with ray tracing on, this game does not want to go above 60 FPS when you're running around in the city. It just wants to stay in the mid 50s. This is actually the same or worse. I'm seeing the same lows of 47. I kind of want to say this game is weirdly or poorly optimized, but I saw the same exact thing in Far Cry 5. Whenever I switched between 1440p and 1080p, there was almost no difference. So maybe there's just something going on with whatever technology Ubisoft is using. When you go up to 4K, you're going to notice it drops substantially lower. It looks pretty good. It feels fluid, but I'm not sure if we're going to get something that I'm satisfied with at 60 FPS with ray tracing on. Once I get something, I want to do a benchmark with it to see how it runs. And I wanted to drive around these busy streets. It's just staying right at about 50-ish. It doesn't drop below 40. But still, I don't like this. Ray tracing on medium doesn't look as good. All right, let's turn off ray tracing. It's not going to look as good. One other thing I want to mention is this game has got so many bugs right now. I couldn't even get this game to open on my other computer in DirectX 12 mode. I had to add in an argument and actually make it like, hyphen DX11 only, so it would only load in DirectX 11. All right, I'm going to turn off ray tracing and DLSS and just see what we got now. Okay, now it just looks a lot worse, but it's running at about 67, 64, 67, 62. It looks okay. But like, look at the lighting and stuff. It's not. Stop drop kicking me, you wild beast. I'm trying to benchmark here. This is the game. This is like the Matrix. He's benchmarking. Someone stop him. All right, we're getting upwards of 70, but still, it does not look as good. Just cut that out. I'll call the police. All right, I'm going to do a benchmark now. Just see how it runs with this setup I have right here. I'm going to do a bunch of benchmarks and put them over on Tech Syndicate, just so you can see very different settings and whatnot, see how it runs. Any ray tracing at 1080p or 1440p, it stays right under 60 FPS. I'm probably going to play it that way if I decide to play this game. I'm not hooked on it yet. If I decide to play this game, I'm going to leave ray tracing on and probably put DLSS on the quality mode, and then just play it this way at like 55 FPS because it didn't drop into the 30s and stuff. And for a single player game, I'm actually okay with that. If this was a multiplayer game or whatever, I would not be okay with that. So yeah, I tried messing with the environment and the geometry and stuff like that, and it really just made the game look so flat. I guess we could turn the shadows down to high and see if that has any effect whatsoever. It just looks so much more vibrant and lifelike with ray tracing, especially at night with all the reflections and the lights and stuff like that. I definitely think ray tracing should be on when you play this game, especially if you're using a 30 series card. Like, come on. All right, we're loading up a benchmark here with those settings that I found, and I put it back on 1440p because it was such a small difference. And the benchmark, it's a canned benchmark, which I like, but I also don't like. It's not fully indicative of how it's going to be when you play it, but this is also something that you can try and with your own system to see how different it's going to be with this system. And over here, we're working with an AMD Ryzen 3900. And when we have the EVGA 3070 on here, it's not the big version, it's the XC3, which is plenty fast. I mean, it's a 3070. And then we have 32 gigabytes of Guile memory, and that is running at 3600 megahertz with the Infinity Fabric locked. This benchmark makes it look like it's playing a lot better than it was when I was running around in the city. This is putting it in the 60s and 70s. So we'll just have to see what the 1% lows are and stuff. But this is probably how I'm going to play it. We're even getting into the 80s right now. It's weird. These areas look really flat without the ray tracing and stuff. Found that it makes quite a big difference in this game. Average is 69 with these settings, and the minimum was 44. I think I'm okay with that. I'm going to save this report, saves it to an HTML file. I'll upload all these, different things I've done. And then it shows you over here the impact of everything. Looks like my field of view is really hitting the CPU, but I don't care because it's a 3900. Makes me feel like I'm looking through binoculars while I'm playing, or I've got a paper towel roll around my eye. I'm just like looking through a scope. So the texture resolution is also could possibly come down, but I'm okay with this. And this is how I'm going to play it. Headlight shadows just on my car, it's fine. And the depth of field I might toggle on and off. It's not as useful in this game. Motion blur always off, garbage. And then my shadows on high, I didn't notice very much difference at all compared to very high. They're still soft around the edges. Not quite as soft, but once you turn them down to low, it looks pretty rough. 1440p, you can actually run it with ray tracing and it works just fine, but at 4K, with ray tracing on and everything, it's too slow. It has some frame drops. No, I'm not going to do it. I'd rather play it at 1440p with ray tracing. It looks much better. Now let's try once with DLSS off, just see if that makes much of a difference, because DLSS actually does look pretty good now in this new implementation, but if you're a stickler, you might notice a tiny bit of difference, maybe a little bit of blur in the upsampling, but the AI is getting really nice. So that's it for the performance with the 3070 and Watchdog Legion. I'm not sure if I'm going to play this game or not. If you really get into it and think it's amazing and think I should, take another look at it, let me know. As it stands right now, I wasn't really hooked, but I've only been playing it for long enough to benchmark it so you could see the performance with the 3070. Again, thanks to the sponsor Bob Keys. Be sure to use them if you're going to be grabbing yourself a Windows key for cheap. And also head over to epicpants.com, grab one of these new Cyberfunk shirts, and maybe a mouse, keyboard, and mouse pad to go with it. See you in the comments.